Welcome to a brand new episode of the Bold Take Podcast. I'm Austin Hill. With me, as always, is Austin Waiter. And we're back talking college football once again. Been a whirlwind of a week for the both of us. I know that much. And it was the same for some teams in college football. So let's not waste a ton of breath here. Look, we had a ton of major upsets in our top 25. And look, now I'm going to say some of these teams' rankings, and maybe you're going to think, oh, this team wasn't ranked super high. But we're talking about teams in the top 25 that maybe are still circling their way around. And one team in the top 10, two teams in the top 10 that went down, one that fell to an unranked. But let's start with these major upsets of these unranked teams taking down these ranked teams. We had Florida taking down number 22 LSU, Stanford squeaking by number 19 Louisville, Arizona State knocking off Kansas State, New Mexico edging out number 18 Washington State, and Kansas stuns number 6 BYU. Now, of course, we're going to go back and talk about all these games, but starting with that Florida LSU game, Florida or LSU has just looked bad these last few weeks. They have not been able to stop a mobile quarterback. And look, let's be frank. DJ Lagway did all his damage with his arm in this game.
Yeah, I mean that we both said we didn't know if DJ Lagway was going to play, but I think if I'm correct, word for word, last week we said, if DJ Lagway starts, Florida could have a really good chance to win this game. Sure enough, that happens. But you mentioned it. I mean, he really didn't. I really don't think he really attempted to rush at all in this game, at least as far as I know. But I mean, this was a game that Florida really it, I don't really want to say I felt confident that LSU was really going to have a chance to win. In my opinion, I felt like Florida was in control for most of the game, especially with it being close with how well their defense played. I think they did a really good job controlling the tempo, controlling the clock, and controlling the game in general and making this LSU offense as uncomfortable as we've ever seen it. Because this LSU offense is usually not the issue, but this Florida defense was able to shut them down enough. And, like I said, I was happy a few weeks ago whenever Billy Napier got announced that he was coming back because, let's face it, the dude got dealt a very tough hand this year. I mean, with the schedule that Florida has had, to be at 5-5 with the young core that they have there, you will take that as a win anytime. Um, Look, there's a lot of talent there. I think Florida has a lot of potential for next year, and this could be something to help build on that as long as they're able to keep most guys from going anywhere. So, nonetheless, it's a good win for Florida to keep on track. LSU, I mean, Brian Kelly. Oh, sorry, the seat's getting a little warm for him there. I mean, he's 6-4. It's worst year he's had LSU to say the least so far.
Really, just not the season that LSU was expecting to have. And look, it's starting to kind of hurt here for Brian Kelly because look, you left a prestigious program like Notre Dame because you felt like you couldn't get it done. And look, let's be honest, he wasn't getting it done there. He thought maybe the SEC was the place where he could go and put together a team. But look, he hasn't won the SEC yet. He's been to one SEC championship game, and now with a lot of the top talent kind of leaked out and having to kind of restart with a new roster, they haven't had the greatest look. And look, in a year where the SEC was really anybody's, they found a way at the end of the SEC season to let this slip away. And really, the defense for Brian Kelly, I'm just surprised how poor the defense has been really the last couple years here at LSU because Notre Dame was pretty known in his time and even still now as being a defensive powerhouse. And you would have thought to some degree he would have still been able to recruit a defense to help this team out. But yeah, LSU just has not been the team I think they were expecting to be um, with this Brian Kelly hire. And you look at LSU, and now they're obviously out of the SEC championship picture. And my question to you as we look at these SEC rankings, we've got Texas and Texas A&M are both 5-1, Georgia 6-2, Tennessee 5-2, Bama is 4-2, and Ole Miss is 4-2. My question for you, figuring that you would maybe know the answer to this question, if A&M and Texas both win this week, are they basically auto? Do they clinch the SEC championship, or would one of them losing their matchup in the final week get Georgia in?
Well, if they both lead into it with the one loss and Georgia wins out, remember Georgia beat Texas head to head. So with the same conference record, that would ultimately, at least as far as I know, with simple basic there, Georgia would get the edge. But that's if A&M uh, wins. If Texas wins, it's an interesting scenario because I feel like there's a whole bunch of tiebreakers you got to go through with that. I think. Um, but listen, I feel like obviously I think Texas A&M will take care of itself. If Texas does win, then this could make things really interesting, determine that final spot. It could is something that has in the past come down to who's the highest ranked team at the in between those teams competing. That's something that's happened in the past before to determine who it is. I don't know if that's what the SEC tiebreaker rule is. The only one I've seen anything about was the eight-way tie, but LSU had to screw that up for all of us fun people who root for chaos. Um, but listen, I think Georgia will obviously be ahead of Tennessee because they beat them head to head. Ole Miss, if there's an argument there, they win out. They beat Georgia head to head. So I mean, it's all over the place. Alabama wins out. They beat them head to head. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different scenarios they're going to figure out. I mean, it's just all over the place in the SEC. But yeah, if Texas and Texas A&M both win this week, one of them's guaranteed a spot in the SEC championship. It's just a matter of who. And that atmosphere at Kyle Field on the Saturday after Thanksgiving, Austin, we've seen a lot of great atmospheres in college football this year. They've been talking about this game since they were at A&M in week one. I really don't care for either team, if I'm being dead honest.
Yeah,
But the atmosphere at that game at Kyle Field might be the greatest thing we've seen in college football in the last 5 or 6 years.
absolutely. So I'm looking at the SEC tiebreakers right now that they announced at the beginning of the season. Fortunately for us, they went ahead and did that. And you're right. Number one, this is nice to see because, as we know in the Pac-12 a couple years ago, it was not this simple. Head-to-head competition is the very, 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 very first criteria to settle a tiebreaker. Then we have record versus all common conference opponents among the tied teams, record against highest best placed common conference opponent in the conference standings, and proceeding through the conference standings among the tied teams, cumulative conference winning percentage of all conference opponents among tied teams, capped relative total scoring margin versus all conference opponents among the tied teams, and if you still can't settle it, they will randomly draw the winner. Uh,
My gosh, please, please let it get to that. That would be some great drama if we could get the random drawing to happen there. I think it would be absolutely phenomenal must watch TV. They
I
have to live stream it.
I'd feel absolutely so sick and cheated if I was one of those tied teams and they just were like, you know what? We're throwing out all the other criteria. It's just a random draw. It's like
Yeah,
some of them have like who's the highest ranked in the college football playoff, and that's not
right.
even we see here. So random draw to me is just kind of the same one to have.
Yeah. But I mean, also, I mean, it's going to go past head to head because of all the stuff I just said.
Yeah,
Georgia beat Tennessee, but Ole Miss beat Georgia, and then Bama beat Georgia. So depending on if they all win out, which is very possible, because the only ones that aren't going to win out is either Texas or Texas A&M because they have to play each other. Georgia can win out, so Tennessee can win out, Alabama can win out, Ole Miss can win out. So yeah, there's very much many different ways that this could go. Um, like I said, I have no idea, but yeah, that would be a treat. I'm trying to remember, was it a year or two ago? They did a coin toss. I forget what conference it was. There was like some coin toss to determine who
I,
like won the conference or something like that.
yeah, I vaguely remember what you're talking about.
I watched the live stream of it. I thought it was the funniest thing ever, and everyone's talking. This is so stupid. I'm like, this is great.
Yeah, was that? Oh, I can't. That can't be right. Was that the American like last year or the year before? Didn't they have like a three-way tie at the top coming into the last couple weeks? Maybe that was settled before the end of the season. But it was like Tulane and I can't even
I'm
remember.
trying to find it right now. I want to figure it out.
Uh,
Conference.
while you're looking at that, Stanford, they squeaked by Louisville here in a close one. And look, it's just been such a strange season for Louisville. Um, they just came off beating Clemson a couple weeks ago, and now ranked in the top 25, they fall to Stanford. Look, I don't know that they were going to have much of a shot in this ACC. Really kind of a three-dog race right now in the ACC, if we're being honest. But just kind of, not a great loss here coming at the end of the season. You talk about being barely bowl eligible. Now at the point, if you're bowl eligible, you're kind of grappling to try and get one of those bigger bowls, trying to get, a better spot on TV. Um, yeah, okay, so yeah, I'm looking at it, and they're four and
Yeah.
three now. They had a very outside chance of making championship that they no longer have.
They would need a lot of things to go their way, that to say the
Yeah,
least.
um, that includes a game we'll talk about a little bit later, probably. Um, but still, this is it. I would like I like Louisville. I like the momentum they had last year. I like how they've looked at their best um this season, but at their worst, they just have not been appealing. Hopefully, Jeff Brom can get this straightened out and get this team back on track for year three.
I mean, listen, they just can't win a close game. I don't know what it takes for this team to win a close game. All four of their losses have come down right to the wire. I mean, there's no other way to put it. Their lone impressive win of the season, impressive wins against Georgia Tech and Clemson were double-digit wins. When it gets to a close game, you bet against Louisville in this. But also, I mean, just this ending was just all over the place. But before I say that, I found what the coin toss scenario was. So it was actually in the FCS college football playoff
Okay,
between UT Martin and Southeast Missouri State. And that was a coin toss to determine who won the Ohio Valley and got into the FCS playoff. They
that
did a coin toss to determine who got in the playoff.
that'd be sick.
Yeah. And UT Martin got screwed over by that. So sorry to bring that up to any very rare, if there are UT Martin people. Sorry to bring that up. But no, the ending of this game was just horrendous. I mean, 4th and 10, Louisville had it at the Stanford 45. There's 11 seconds left. You go for it, you don't get it. Then Stanford does one play of a play for 1 yard. Then you have the unsportsmanlike conduct on Louisville, which put them at a 57-yarder. Then you had an offsides on Louisville, which then made a 52-yard. I mean, oh my gosh, it hurt my head just watching it. It hurt my head. I felt so bad. I'm happy for Stanford that they got a win. But Louisville, you're hurting my head right now. I mean, just win the close games. They are so close to being a 10-0 or 9-1 team if they could just win some freaking close games.
Yeah, absolutely with you there. Let's take a look over at the Big 12, which had some massive shakeup from all this. And look, that's Arizona State knocking off Kansas State, and then Kansas stunning number six BYU. Look, Arizona State's a team that's been really surprising this year, been a force really in this Big 12 this year. And Kansas State just kind of almost in a Louisville sense. They just it's to me it's like they haven't really been able to find their footing this season. Uh, they're a very talented team. Um, and look, hopefully Avery Johnson will come back next year and try and take advantage of what is a very talented team because they're on the right track. But yeah, it seems that they just have these massive blunders. And to be a college football playoff competing team, these are the games you can't lose. Unranked opponent, even though they're two loss, unranked opponent. These are the games you got to win, and they just couldn't do it. And then for Kansas and BYU, look, it's felt like for the last couple of weeks this kind of game was coming for BYU. Slowly, the game started getting closer. The execution started getting a little weaker, and they benefited from uh, one of the craziest officiated final drives last week that we've seen in a while. Um, but in this one, Kansas comes out, and again, Kansas wants a bowl game. I'm going to say that much. They needed to win out to get a bowl game. And look, this is a team again. It is so disappointing watching how well this Kansas team has executed at the end of the season. To think about what could have been. Look, Jalen Daniels has another year of eligibility that I did not realize. He's technically a junior. Um, the COVID year is insane, and he has an injury red shirt that makes him a junior, which is crazy to think about. Um, so look, he could very well come back, and I think he should come back and play for somebody next year. But this team should have been so much more, and they're showing exactly what they're capable of now. I picked this team to win the Big 12, and with the way they're playing right now, I think they absolutely could have done it. Uh, Look, they've got another test this week against Colorado, but look, these two losses or these two games to me, they really put this Big 12 playoff picture into even more contention. But what are your thoughts on these games before we break down what the Big 12 conference championship picture looks like?
Well, I will say just overall, I think we'll get a very clear picture of what that Big 12 title race is going to look like after this game, these games this weekend that are coming up. But as far as last weekend, listen, I felt confident Arizona State could go in against Kansas State, and there's nothing against Kansas State. I just feel like this Arizona State team, they have looked phenomenal. They haven't played a really tough schedule, but they're winning their games they're supposed to. And yeah, it was a great performance. Really, they didn't even run the ball that well. Cam Scattaboo, college football legend, let it be known. Um, Only had 73 yards rushing in the game. He didn't have over 100 yards. He had 25 carries in the game. They shut down the run. But what helped them was Sam Levitt, the true freshman quarterback, was throwing the ball so well. He has been so great for them throwing the ball, playing as a freshman. Think about what he could do if they bring him back next year. Of course, they also have some great wide receiver help from Jordan Tyson as well. And then the defense as well. The defense made some big turnovers, so they were able to get that done. This was a game I expected to be close, and now Arizona State's got a fun opportunity this Saturday. And as far as Kansas and BYU, I mean, I've tried telling people everywhere, not just on this show, but even my own family, whenever we're making picks for college football, I'm like, I'm telling you, Kansas is someone who's good. Their record just doesn't say that. And they're like, whatever. They pick against them against Iowa State. I'm like, I tried to tell you. And then I said the same thing about BYU this week, and they're like, no way. It's sixth-ranked BYU at home. It's not going to happen. I'm like, okay. Don't be shocked if it does. And I'll be honest with you, when it came down to that final drive, I really thought BYU was going to escape again because they got the ball back on that final drive. And I'm like, great, this is setting up. BYU's going to score a miracle touchdown, survive. The undefeated season lives. And they just keep on rolling. But the Kansas defense made the stop at the end. And you're absolutely right. Look, they want to get to a bowl game and they know what they got to do. They got to win these final two games to get to that bowl game. Obviously, playing a Colorado team this next week who is going to be tough, but they are hosting them, so I think that could make it interesting. And then they're at Baylor the final week, who's Baylor's surprised people, I think, being better than a lot of people thought they were going to be. So, and then for BYU, look, we'll talk more about their matchup, like we're going to talk about later in the show. But yeah, this Big 12, this kind of set up what is happening this weekend in the Big 12, which are some opportunities to really finally see only two teams at the top of the Big 12 for what's felt like the first time in forever in a couple of years.
Yeah. So look, the big thing to see here is that technically, potentially, maybe one of these three loss teams in conference could slide up, but they'd need everybody to lose, which
Yeah.
is kind of a hard thing to ask to happen. But our four big players right now, BYU at 6-1, Colorado at 6-1, Arizona State at 5-2, and Iowa State at 5-2. And look, you look at the matchups this weekend. You talked about Colorado, Kansas. This is not going to be a look. 4 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, Colorado probably could have looked at this game and been like, okay, we're just gonna stay on track. But now this isn't just a coast game. You go into Colorado or you go into Kansas. You're ranked number 16. Your chance at the Big 12 championship really hangs in this game. You really would like to win this game. Kansas wants to be bowl eligible. They're playing their best football right now. They're going to give you a fight. This is not going to be an easy game. BYU and Arizona State in a grudge match. I cannot believe this game is at 2:30. Look, quite simple. Arizona State keeps their conference championship hopes alive with a win here. And BYU, if they lose here, really they might be out of it.
Man, I mean, if you want my honest opinion, BYU loses, they are out of it in my mind. If BYU loses, I don't think they got a shot. Their only hope is Arizona State losing to Arizona next week, which it's at Arizona, and we know what talent Arizona has offensively, so you never say never. But I'm saying they would need that to work out, and then some other teams to lose, like a Colorado and Iowa State again, to really get that shot. So, but man, I tell you, I can't wait for that Arizona State BYU game. That is going to be a fun one. I'm with you. I wish this was a prime time matchup on Fox or just somewhere on prime time because this deserves it. But I mean, it's going to be a fun matchup, and it's one of the new wrinkles in the new Big 12 with so many different teams all competing for it. You get an Arizona State BYU matchup. I can't wait to see it. But I said you're going to get some more clearance after this. If Colorado beats Kansas, they're in. They basically have clinched themselves a spot. If BYU beats Arizona State, they have basically clinched themselves a spot. But if Arizona State wins, they ultimately set up where they beat Arizona. They're playing Colorado not just for a Big 12 title, but for a trip to the college football playoff for one of those two teams who I think nobody, and I swear if any person says they have Arizona State, you're full of crap. Nobody thought would be a Big 12 championship of Arizona State and Colorado and say, one of these teams is going to be in the playoff. I had no recollection of that, of anybody ever saying that start of the season.
Yeah. And then we look at, you talked about Iowa State. Look, they've maybe got the easiest game this week, and that's not taking it lightly, though. This game is not
Yep.
entirely easy. They've got Utah.
Yep.
Look, Iowa State's in a pickle right now. Really, to make them feel comfortable, they'd like Arizona State and Kansas to win this week. They go out and get a win. Now you've got everybody with 2 conference losses, and things would get interesting. And then next week, the final week here, Oklahoma State, Colorado. Oklahoma State could look to play a little spoiler on Friday at 11 a.m.
Friday games are on those Thanksgiving week. Those are the ones that get you. I'm telling you.
Then Kansas State could look to play spoiler to Iowa State, and maybe, depending on how things shake out, maybe be fighting for a spot to stay in. Again, these 3 loss teams would really need a lot to go in their favor to be fighting for a spot. They'd really need Kansas, Arizona State, and Utah to win this week to stay eligible as a 3 loss team in conference. But who knows what happens? Kansas State could maybe stay eligible. At the very least, they're playing eliminator to Iowa State.
Yeah, yeah.
Arizona State.
Yeah.
And then Houston, BYU. So look, this last week, if BYU and Colorado can win this week, I think they'll have enough momentum to go in and close out the season in the last week. But if Kansas plays them close and gives them a tough fight in Colorado, maybe wins that game. Definitely, if Arizona State beats BYU, that Houston game might get a little trickier. So it's going to be a fun finish to this season in the Big 12, like it's been the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter. The Big 12 always delivers. But again, this is just one of the beauties of the 12-team playoff era because in the past you would say there's no shot Arizona State or Colorado are getting into the playoff even if they win the Big 12. Now with the automatic qualifier, those teams late in the season, despite being super successful and maybe falling short of the top four, they know that they can still get into that playoff. So you love to see it. It's what, again, makes you wonder why they didn't do something like this sooner. And it just shows why the 12-team playoff continues to be the gift that keeps on giving. And we're in year one of it, Austin.
Yeah, and I mean, right now with the way the rankings look, Boise State. Well, we'll talk about it in just a minute. It makes me just so excited to even think about it that I just can't. I'm so giddy thinking about the projection that I saw after this week of what the college football playoff would look like if it started today. That I'm so giddy. I just want to talk about it now. But a couple more games to touch on. Clemson survives a 24-20 thriller versus Pitt. And this was real. Look, I thought when Pitt went down and scored at the end of the game, I was like, here it is, another Dabo Sweeney just choking sensation. He just can't win the games against competent teams. And look, their offensive drive started poorly. But look, I got to give Cade Klubnik credit where credit is due. He was in a pickle. He took off. And a move that we kind of saw from Josh Allen this past week in the NFL as well, and just darted for a massive rushing touchdown to put his team on top. And then the Clemson defense came out and shut down Pitt, did not let them get back into the end zone. Pretty sensational win for Clemson to keep themselves alive in the ACC championship picture and maybe give themselves an outside shot at a college football playoff berth. Um, Thoughts on this one?
I mean, listen, I mean, like you said, credit to Cade Klubnik. Yeah, he's had a phenomenal touchdown run there. Uh, Listen, you wonder about just how this game would have gone. Eli Holstein for Pitt. You wonder how it would have gone if he would have played. But you mentioned with Clemson, it keeps their very, very slim playoff hopes alive. Keeps their very slim hopes of making that ACC title game alive. Obviously, SMU still got to have to slip up. Miami would have to slip up. And listen, I'm telling you, Miami is at Syracuse that Saturday after Thanksgiving. At Syracuse. I'm just saying that's one to keep an eye on. I'll be honest with you, I don't think SMU is going to lose two games to end the year with Virginia and California. They might lose
No.
one, but I think they're going to get in. I think that Miami and Syracuse game on that Saturday is one to keep an eye on, with it being at Syracuse, that Clemson fans would need to root for, which is fitting given how Syracuse has ruined their season in the past.
Yeah. Then we have Lenore Sellers shining in SC's 34-30 victory over Mizzou. And I'm another team I'm excited to see their future is South Carolina. Lenore Sellers, so young and so talented. Uh, what he could be next year, whether that's at South Carolina or somewhere else, is truly sensational. And it's been again. Oh, I know I say this every week with South Carolina. What could have been in the SEC for them early in this season with an injury to Lenore Sellers that cost them a game, a very close game against Alabama. This team realistically could be fighting for a conference championship appearance had they had a couple things go their way.
Yeah, I mean, the only game they lost this year that you don't look at what ifs is Ole Miss because Ole Miss just kicked their butt. But I mean, the LSU game, I mean, I said it then, even for someone who picked LSU and had money on LSU, if Lenore Sellers does not suffer that ankle injury and plays the whole game, they blow LSU out. It's not even close. The Alabama game, listen, if they could have just figured something out, they recovered the onside kick. If they could have just had better management late on that drive, getting field goal range, they could win that game too. So yeah, it's sickening for them. But I do appreciate them beating Missouri. I don't get how Missouri is still ranked. I really, really, really don't get it, considering they have played three teams that are good and they've lost to them, two of them in a blowout, and one of them losing just a game in general there. So They played three good teams and they've lost to all of them, two of the three in pretty dominating fashion. So I don't get how they're ranked, but I'm loving South Carolina, like you mentioned, just a couple of bad things that go their way, and they're probably playing for an SEC title right now.
Yeah, and the thing I think is, even more proven about that LSU game is the way they couldn't stop Lenore Sellers running the ball in that game. And that
Exactly.
even more confirms that they would have won that game had Sellers played the whole game.
Yeah.
And then finally, Georgia dominated Tennessee 31-17. Look, this game, it was not pretty for Tennessee. It was not the kind of statement you needed at the end of the season, where a loss in this game would put you on the fringe of college football playoff hopes. Uh, just not a great performance on their end. And for Georgia, this was the game Carson Beck really needed to get his confidence back up. Look, not a ton of yards, um, is and a few touchdowns, but no turnovers. He controlled the ball and he managed the game and helped Georgia get the job done against a tricky and tough opponent that they really needed to beat.
Yeah, listen, Tennessee got outplayed for most of it, but that first quarter, the way it started, it kind of gave you a wonder because Tennessee got up 10-0 like that. Like they got up 10-0 very quickly. But basically, from when Georgia scored that first touchdown, that's when you notice just the different level. Even when it was 17-17 at halftime, I felt very confident that Georgia was going to win this game. And then their defense just didn't let Tennessee even come close to having a shot in the second half, not giving up a single point, scoring the two touchdowns. Um, so I mean, the result did not surprise me. Just Tennessee starting fast kind of surprised me, but the game was not a shocker at all. Like I said, I have had my opinion about Tennessee for a while. I don't believe they should be a playoff team. I don't think they will be, especially with still having to play at Vanderbilt still. So that'll handle itself. But Georgia, um, they are done with SEC play, so they don't have any SEC games that could trip them up. But they still got to play Georgia Tech that Friday night, and that's at night on Friday. So, um, man, it'll be interesting to see there. But Georgia got the win and somehow keep their playoff hopes alive.
Yeah, they needed it big time. But let's take a look at these college football playoff rankings and look, starting with the top five: Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, Indiana. Same top five as last week. And it's just crazy that at this point in the season, there are four Big Ten teams in the top five. I don't think a lot of people would have expected that coming into this season.
No, I don't think so. I mean, especially a certain someone at number five. I think it's safe to say no one had Indiana there. But listen, with Oregon, Ohio State, I mean, and Penn State, those are three talented teams. I mean, I'll just say it. Ohio State, Indiana, we're going to talk more about it here soon, I'm sure. But it'll just be a great matchup. I don't know what the plan is talking about it. Penn State at Minnesota. Minnesota has looked better and better every single week this season has gone on. So, Penn State, if they're not ready to play, the Golden Gophers could give them a scare this week.
Absolutely. Then at six, Notre Dame. My goodness, I've been waiting for this literally since the college football playoff rankings started coming out. At number six, I think this team has undoubtedly been a top five or six team since the Northern Illinois loss. Look, I know it's not a pretty loss to have on your resume, especially with the way the season's turned out for Northern Illinois. But this team has downright dominated almost every other team on their schedule. It's just not even a question. I know I'm a Notre Dame fan, so I know that my words have a little bit of bias, but they've played by the end of the season with this Army game, they will have played four ranked games and have won every single one of them. Well, that's barring they win this week against Army, which they will.
That
Don't,
you dare tout the Army Black Knights in
um,
Yankee Stadium?
with that, I just think, look, obviously Notre Dame cannot, no matter what, obtain a bye. The best they can do is five, as it stands. But this is where this team should be. This team is look, right now, I'm not scared to say it. They're better than Alabama. They're better than Miami. They're better than Ole Miss. They're better than Georgia. They're better than Tennessee. And that's how they're ranked. Finally, this is what I've been waiting for personally is to see this in the college football playoff rankings finally making a statement that I care about. Uh, at 7, we've got Alabama, 8, Miami, 9, Ole Miss, and 10, Georgia.
Listen, the only thing I gotta say about all this, also for Notre Dame, let's just say Miami, Ohio, took care of business against Northern Illinois, and Miami, Ohio, a team that they beat very handedly earlier this year, is now at the top of the MAC. So, that's just something to keep an eye on. I think to go along with their resume. If you're going to look at Northern Illinois, you should look at Miami, Ohio as well. Um, I just don't get how come Alabama gets to move up 3 spots basically just for fun. Alabama beat Mercer. By the way, I'm sorry that they did not cover. It was so close for your bet of the week. It was so close. It was so close. It was so close.
Yeah, 3 points.
3 points, absolutely gunning. But listen, I don't get how they get to move up 3 spots just because Miami didn't get to play a game. I don't get the point there. Um, just seems kind of like a joke to me. But listen, some of this is still head-to-head stuff. Um, some of it. I'm not saying all of it. We'll get to that in a minute. I'm sure with some of the other ones. But Georgia is still behind Ole Miss because Ole Miss beat them. So I think that's a fair one there. I just don't think Alabama deserved to jump up 3 spots for beating Mercer.
Yeah, I'm with you there. That's a bit of a that's a little too high value on that game. At 11, we've got Tennessee. At 12, you've got Boise State, 13 SMU, 14 BYU, and 15 Texas A&M. Uh, look, if you want my personal opinion about this part of the rankings, I've hated how since the college football playoff rankings have come out, Texas A&M has gotten this like to me it's just kind of sickening treatment. And it's continuing now. They're the number 2 team in the SEC right now. And Tennessee, who has lost to Arkansas and now got the break speed off them by Georgia, is still sitting at 11. How is Texas A&M not sitting in the current projected college football playoff bracket? How?
Their only loss in SEC play, well, let's think of it. Their only 2 losses in general are to Notre Dame, who is number 6 in the country, and to South Carolina on the road, who just so happens to be a top 20 team now. So I don't I don't get it either. But my main issue, obviously, is SMU and BYU. I get dropping BYU after the loss. That makes sense. But head to head, boys, BYU and SMU, BYU won head to head. They deserve to be ranked ahead of SMU. That's something simple that shouldn't even be even discussed with this. That's just something simple there. But yeah, the hatred for A&M. Listen, if they beat Texas, then it'll take care of itself for them. Um, but if we're just talking about resumes in general, you can go down the line. Texas, their resume is just, I'll just be honest with you, pure dog crap. Because their best wins are against Arkansas and Vanderbilt. That counts as their best wins. Neither of them are ranked. No disrespect to Vandy. They should be ranked. Rank them, you cowards. Um, but those are your best wins. That's not top 3 level. And some people are like, well, they beat Michigan. Michigan was good when they played them, ranked in the top 10. They're 5-5 now. They're a 5-5 team. They have the one good team they played in Georgia. Georgia outplayed them the whole game. Georgia outplayed them. So, that's a whole different argument we can go into there. But yeah, I feel like A&M and BYU are getting a little bit too much hate here.
Yeah, and then just a couple of teams I want to point out right here, right on the edge, are Colorado and Clemson. Look, I think it's pretty clear to me that we'll probably shake some of these SEC teams, and an SMU or a Clemson or a Colorado is going to get a chance to be in here. One thing you're looking at right now is that there's no Big 12 champion or there's no Big 12 team in the college football playoff projections as it stands right now. And so one of the SEC teams will fall out just purely because of the win a win for in the Big 12 conference championship will get a Big 12 team at least the 12 seed.
Yeah,
Um
I was gonna say I actually have the projected bracket here with me if you would like me to go over it.
yeah, over it.
Yeah, so the 1 seed would still be Oregon. They would still be the 1 seed. 2 seed would now be Texas, still obviously. 3 seed Miami. 4 seed, though, again, we talked about it. Boise State would now be one of the teams to get a bye in the playoff. Now, the fifth conference champion, you mentioned it, BYU. They would be ranked 12th in the playoff rankings if they were to start today based on these rankings, which means the Big 12 champ would have to go on the road to play the 5 seed, Ohio State currently, in round one. Now, the other matchups, Austin, I'm not going to lie to you. If these were the first round matchups, they'd be a treat. And that's one of the things I love about looking at this is every week the thought process in my head with these being home playoff games, it's
Yeah.
like, oh my God, this would be incredible to watch. For example, Notre Dame hosting Alabama in a college football playoff game. Are you freaking kidding me? Yes, please. Another one. That would be 8 versus 9, 6 versus 11. Penn State would host Georgia in Happy Valley. Are
Like
you freaking kidding me?
capable.
That would be the greatest thing I've seen all year. And then Indiana hosting against Ole Miss in Bloomington. I mean, this is all just so awesome to just go over it with that. That's the thing that gets me giddy every time I go over this is like, my God, if we could have a Penn State whiteout with Georgia coming to town. It'd be amazing.
Yeah, it's truly something special to look at here. I'm very excited for what's coming with that college football playoff. But let's take a look at our teams and players of the week. Um, and so starting with our team of the week, I'm going to go with my number five here. Stanford is my number five team of the week. Look, I like the win against Louisville. Nice little stunner late in the season over a top 25 team. Gets you a little bit excited thinking about, this team and what's happening. And, always saving some surprises at the end of the season to kind of thin the herd and open up some spots for some other teams to maybe finish the season ranked. Um, at number four, I went with New Mexico. Look, Washington State looked like a team that was starting to mount and make a college football playoff case for themselves, maybe to try and sneak in as some teams shake in and shake out. And so now seeing New Mexico come in and get a big win there was pretty exciting to see. At number three, I went with Georgia. Look, the reason they're not higher, even though they beat a team ranked a little bit higher than they were, is that look, this I think this is a win that a lot of people saw coming for Georgia. This wasn't a surprise that Georgia won this game, and the pure domination in which they did it was just really incredible. I think that's really the only reason I have them here to begin with is just how dominant this victory was. At number two, I went with Florida. Look, they come out and they get a big win, showing kind of what this future can be. Like you said, committing to Billy Napier for another year. DJ Lagway, they can hopefully get to come back. Really puts this team in a big spot as they try to angle themselves with some more SEC experience to what they can maybe do next year. And at number one, I went with Kansas. This is a team that we should be talking about fighting for a college football playoff spot. And the way they're playing right now shows how talented they are and shows what they've tried to build over the last couple of years. But that's my top five.
So as far as my top five, number five had to go with Florida there. Listen, like you mentioned, it was a great win for the Gators. They went out there and they handled business, and they were able to get an impressive win against Florida or against LSU, and thus build something maybe for the future there. Number four, I actually went with Arizona State. I thought it was a very impressive win to go on the road, take down Kansas State in that environment, really control the game from the get go, and now put yourself in a spot for maybe doing a uh college football playoff spot maybe for them. I think it'd be awesome. Number three, went with Kansas there. I think Kansas will be a really fun one to watch as they try to fight to get to a bowl game. I think it'd be great for them. Number two, went with Stanford. look, the win, there was all kinds of drama going around all around it for Stanford and the dumbness of Louisville, you could argue, but they got the win in regulation. I believe their first win against a Division One opponent, man, in a long time, I think, in a long, long time at home. And then number one, New Mexico. How about Bronco Mendenhall, the job he has done in year one at New Mexico, getting a win over a ranked opponent? They looked great. And yeah, just wanted to give them a massive shout out. They had to be my number one team. And yeah, that was my rankings right there, 1 through 5. So if you're wondering where Austin is at, I don't know if y'all can see him or not. Some dingus forgot to send him the pics till during the middle of the show. So yeah, I'm just waiting for him to make his return. There he is. Yeah, some dingus forgot to send him the pics before the show. I don't know who that could have been. I don't know.
Yeah, sorry, I did. I realized I fixed. I've already fixed it. So had I realized my camera had completely gone off, I would have been able to fix that
I
for
just
us. But
kept
yeah,
on talking. I just kept on talking to make
yeah,
up for it. So
I appreciate. Yeah, I appreciate that. That really saved us there. Totally won't be an embarrassing moment for either of us when we come back and
well,
look.
some dingus would have just sent you them, I don't know, before the show. This the whole thing could have been prevented. So
It happens to us all. But look on our polls. Look, we had Kansas really taking in some big votes, and Florida sneaking in and stealing a share of votes. But look, it's plain and simple. We both have Kansas on our list. Kansas is going to win. And look, man, I wish we could add Kansas on these lists more this year. It
yeah.
really, I know I'm going to keep talking about it. It really is upsetting to me. It was upsetting when they started the season. I was like, oh, I picked them to win the Big 12. But I was like, some things just happen. You can't be right about everything. So, you know what? Kansas isn't going to be the team I thought they were going to be this year. The problem is they are playing like the team I thought they were going to be this year. They just waited until they had nothing to gain from it,
Yeah.
except a measly little bowl game at the end of the year. So a little bit disappointing for me there with how they finished the season, but I'm glad we can make them our team of the week this week and at least undo some of the wrong that happens in this world. Um,
I'm
but
happy about it too. So I love seeing Kansas getting some love. One of the many teams that's getting love. I'm with you. I wish we could have given them more love this year, like we did last year with it. But things just didn't go. Things just didn't work out for them. But hopefully, maybe we'll see them maybe next week if they were to pull off some kind of upset this Saturday.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. At number 5, I have for my player of the week. I shouldn't just run into it there with player of the week. At number 5, I went with Devin Dampier, the running back from New Mexico. 193 yards and 3 touchdowns. Really a big statement when you can do that with your running game against a team is ranked in the top 25. Absolutely phenomenal performance there. Look, this week I gave some running backs some love. You're going to notice as I keep going here. At number 4, I went with Ashton Jeanty, Boise State's running back. My favorite to win the Heisman, the guy that should already have the Heisman Trophy, in my opinion. 159 yards, 3 touchdowns. He just makes being the best player in the entire country look so easy. It is absolutely ridiculous at the pace in which he plays. He runs the ball better than anybody we've seen in a long time. And there's just nothing to say about it. I mean, the numbers of like the last 4 running backs to win the Heisman pale in comparison to Ashton Genty's numbers.
Not even
It,
close.
it's unbelievable the way he makes Mark Ingram, Derrick Henry, and Reggie Bush look minuscule in the wake of his pure domination. I don't care who he's played. He's had a dominant season. I mean, it just doesn't matter. And the way he can just come out and get in the end zone 3 times, 2 times every week, and get over 150 yards every week is unbelievable. At number 3, I went with Jeremiah Love from Notre Dame. Look, they played Virginia, but Jeremiah Love has scored at least 1 touchdown in every game Notre Dame's played this season. Gets over 100 yards, 137, 2 touchdowns. Really kind of the life force of this offense. Look, Maybe Riley Leonard doesn't always have a fantastic game, but Jeremiah Love finds a way to hit pay dirt and finds a way to control this game on the ground. That's what you need to stay competent is a consistent run game that can keep you in it. Love Jeremiah Love. I love to give him some respect right here. Being a little bit of a homer pick for me. At number two, I went with Cade Klubnik. Look, the passing yards don't entirely jump out at you. 288 and two passing touchdowns, but 41 rushing yards that come all off of a 50-yard touchdown run to seal this game against Pitt. Absolutely the game I have been waiting for Cade Klubnik to have since he got to Clemson. This is the moment we've been waiting. He's supposed to have had a career filled with these moments by now. Close games against competitive teams. Cade Klubnik's supposed to have this ice in his veins to be this leader, to seal it, to be like a Deshaun Watson or a Trevor Lawrence type at Clemson. And we haven't seen it, but we saw it in this game. And I think that's a big moment for Clemson to have and keeps their college football playoff hopes alive. And at number one, I went with what I thought was a no-brainer. Sure, this guy had a turnover, but 353 passing yards and 5 passing touchdowns against Missouri, a team which I agree with you. How are they still ranked? Lenore Sellers. This guy has played phenomenal football, and next year he will be, I think, a Heisman favorite coming into the season. He's played this well. He's got so much potential. He does so much throwing the ball and rushing the ball. This guy has put a target on his back. Look, he's going to be a guy I think we see a crazy amount of recruiting in the transfer portal. Because look, right now it's unchecked. Sure, maybe Lenore Sellers hasn't said he's in the transfer portal, but I guarantee people are calling Lenore Sellers' phone. People are talking to him after games. Look, he's a talented guy. He's going to be a Heisman favorite no matter where he is. I kind of hope it's in South Carolina to keep building what they're building on. But no matter where this guy goes, he is going to be a sensation, and he's played fantastic this season, and this week was really a just a masterpiece.
To say the least. So my top five is a little bit different. Starting number five for me, I got Jalen Walker, the linebacker from Georgia, for their win against Tennessee. He had 2 sacks again. Here in a way, I'll just say it. It's an argument for him to be the best defensive player in football and the first defensive player off the board in the NFL draft come April. Just a dominant pass rusher, to say the least. Had to show him some love. Number four, had to go with my guy from Stanford. It's a wide receiver from Stanford, but not Io Manor like he was last year. Never forget that performance he had against
Yeah.
Travis Hunter in Colorado last year. It was one of the best I've ever seen. But my guy I gave it to this week, Emmett Mosley, the fifth, a freshman for Stanford. 13 catches, 168 yards, 3 touchdowns for Stanford in this game against a very talented Louisville team. So had to give him some love. Number three, I know it's controversial, have him down at three, Lenore Sellers. I know, I get the argument for it, but there's some other guys I wanted to get some love to in the top three. But he's very worthy of it. Had a phenomenal performance, led the game-winning drive. I'm with you. I'm excited to see what he can do if he stays at South Carolina. I think if he stays there, it could be really fun in the SEC next year, potentially for South Carolina. Number two, another wide receiver that I wanted to give love to, and this is Jordan Tyson. I mentioned him for Arizona State, and their win over Kansas State. He had a phenomenal performance along with Sam Levitt. 12 catches, 176 yards, and 2 touchdowns for him. Just doing it against a Kansas State team that's had a pretty solid defense all year long. So had to show him some love. And then number one, you talked about him, quarterback for New Mexico, was the leader for them, passing the ball and running the ball against Washington State. Devin Dampier, 174 yards, 1 passing touchdown, but 193 yards on the ground, 3 rushing touchdowns, taking down the 18th ranked team in the country. Had to give some love to him. And also just Bronco Mendenhall, that New Mexico team in general. In the first year of a program that's been pretty much nothing for a long time, now they're 1 win away from bowl eligibility. So happy for them.
Yeah, and look, when we look at the polls, unfortunately, this one just was not close. Lenore
Yeah.
Stellers, the clear favorite this week, our Ashton Ginty College Football Player of the Week, I'm rebranding the Player of the Week title because I can't imagine that anybody's won it more than Ashton Genty so far.
Can I just say the fact that you've rebranded it to a guy who is still playing right
Yeah,
now tells you how dominant he is. Like we did the Michael Penix Award thing after he had already got graduated and everything. But we're doing the Ashton Genty Award while we're still in Ashton Genty's Heisman season. If that
yeah,
doesn't tell you how dominant the guy is, I don't know what does. I don't know.
yeah. He's just ridiculous. And look, so far, I don't think there's another player we've had that's won as many Player of the Weeks as Ashton Genty. And I simply just don't know if there will be another one for a while. Look, so
He
many things
might be
can
the
happen.
GOAT. He might be the GOAT of the Bold Take podcast. He might be the GOAT.
I agree. I know it's so early, but just the thing is, we try to have, different players every week. We try to be unique about it. And for a guy to be this consistent on here, it's just unbelievable. Um, but let's take it to our game previews now. Um, and I've got three of them for us. First, I've got number nine Ole Miss versus Florida. Look, the three games I've got highlighted are games where this ranked team, who's on the verge of college football playoff contention, should win, but the team they're playing might just come out and stun them. And look, Florida's got momentum. They just beat LSU. Now they get to host Ole Miss, and they have a chance to get a big win. I don't know that they will, but I think momentum's on their side. I think Billy Napier has a little bit more confidence, like you said, kind of having, knowing this isn't it, a chance to prove himself and start getting geared up for what could be next season. And look, always, no matter who you're playing, it's fun to play spoiler in those conference games.
But also, just on the Ole Miss side, keep in mind they didn't play last week, the week after beating Georgia. So all everyone was talking to them about this week was, "Oh, you're so great! You took down Georgia." They're hearing nothing but praise. Now you're going into the swamp against a team who just picked up some momentum with a good win against LSU. I wish this was a night game. If it was a night game, I would be hammering Florida money line like the world was on the line with it because I think that's what's set up. 11 a.m. kickoff, it's different, but still, this Florida team's been on a roll as of late. Their defense has been playing really solid the last couple of weeks, is what I've really liked. So I think if their defense can shut down this Ole Miss offense, I think both defenses really solid. This is a low scoring game. I think that leads more to Florida. They got to make it a low scoring affair.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think it's got to be low scoring. We've seen over the last couple of weeks for Ole Miss how devastating this offense can be when you start to just let it get up high scoring. So they're definitely going to have to get some stops. Then we've got number 16 Colorado versus Kansas. And look, this is the game we alluded to earlier, but look, Kansas gets this game at home. That's another big thing about these games I picked. These games are at home for the team that's looking to play spoiler. And look, this could be a fun one for the Kansas fans. Not what to believe in early in the season, but now the momentum's starting to spin. You got Coach Prime coming to town, already a guy that college fan bases love to hate in Deion Sanders, and now a chance to maybe again. I'm going to keep saying it. Play spoiler and get an upset here. I feel like Kansas has some momentum coming into it. I think Colorado is probably going to win this game and unfortunately end Kansas's chance at being bowl eligible. But I think this is going to be a close game, and I do not think Colorado can overlook this one, especially with how Kansas has played as of late.
I mean, you said it there. I mean, listen, the Kansas football, they've gone all in on Kansas football. The fans have, the university has there. They know what's at stake and they want them to be a successful football program. That stadium will be jam packed and they're bringing in Colorado. Listen, Colorado, this is the trap game for you. You win this game, you are set pretty much to play for a trip to the college football playoff. You win this game and you do that. Just got to be ready to play straight from the get go. You need to take advantage early. I think if it's close and they let Kansas hang around, mainly in the second half, if this is a one score game in the second half, I would really like where Kansas is at in this football game. If Colorado comes out and dominates, listen, they're as good in my book to make the playoff. They can do that and handle that kind of pressure there.
Yeah, completely agree with you there. And the final game we're looking at in my game previews, Penn State goes on the road to face Minnesota. I'm glad we've gotten to the point where you can read my mind on what we're going to be talking about because you kind of I thought this was going to be a little bit of a surprise game for me to have as a game pick because, like you said, Minnesota has looked so good week in and week out. What PJ Fleck has really done at Minnesota really during his entire tenure, but this season to really get this team on track. And look, I think it really started with that USC victory, what got this team really going. But it's just like we start talking about the Big Ten, and you're like, and I don't know if we're going to talk about it, but this Minnesota Penn State game, and I'm just like, well, we are going to talk about it, so stop talking about it. Um,
No, this is if of all the unranked versus ranked matchups, this is the one I see the most upset potential in because the way Minnesota plays, the way they run the football, control the clock, we know what they will bring defensively. And we've seen Penn State. It comes down to what Penn State will do offensively. Are they going to be aggressive offensively and look to air it out? Or in a stressful situation, will we see the offense like the Ohio State game where they're scared to take chances, where they're just looking to run the ball in short pass? The aggressiveness of Penn State's offense is what's going to determine this game. If they are not aggressive, I'm going to be dead honest with you. I see Minnesota win this game outright because, and it was actually on another show I do, this was my Superdog pick for my upset of the week. I do think Minnesota will be the one that can upset them, but it comes down to the aggressiveness of Penn State's offense and Drew Aller and what they do attacking down the field. If they have success, they can win this game by double digits. If they don't, I would not be surprised if Minnesota won outright.
and unfortunately, in the James Franklin tenure, this is one of those classic Penn State letdown spots. Um,
Yeah.
they're a competent team. They've had a good season. And look, they only had the Ohio State game on the schedule and they lost it, but they're still in talks, chances still to maybe even make the conference championship. They'd need a lot to go their way, though, but chances maybe even still to get that far. But they always have this letdown where they lose, one or two games to these just random unranked conference opponents. They just find a way to get bested. I hate to put that out there because I like cheering for Penn State and I
Just
like,
it's such a perfect setup for that, though. That's what it is.
yeah, but this is just the typical spot. And right now, if I was a Penn State fan, this is the spot this is the game I'm dreading coming into this week. I would not be loving the situation coming into this one. But let's get to our game picks here. We've got three of them coming at you. Our first one, number 19 Army versus number 6 Notre Dame, 6 o'clock on NBC and Peacock. I will definitely be tuning into this one, and I'll get my pick out of the way right now because I already said it earlier. I think Notre Dame's going to win this game. Look, they showed how well they can defend the triple option. Look, I think Bryson Daly's the much better triple option quarterback between Army and Navy. So I think that he will do more damage than Blake Horvath did against Notre Dame. But still, I think that's more advantageous for us though that we saw the weaker of the two triple option offenses first, so that we saw how to stop the triple option. Hopefully, we come in, we do our jobs, and we limit this game, and we get ourselves another 30-plus point victory.
Again, and I just tell you how much I hate neutral sites. This is what I'm talking about. If this game was played at Army Stadium, I would love it so much. I feel like the atmosphere would be incredible there. Instead, it's at Yankee Stadium. I do love it's at night and not an 11 a.m. kickoff. I do love that. But the thing with Army, if they want to win, they just can't turn the ball over. Navy turned it over what 6 times against Notre Dame the first when they
Yeah.
played. If they can avoid the turnovers, they might have a shot. Might, because I think Notre Dame is the one who will win this game. Um, but I think if Army wants any chance to win, they have to avoid turnovers. If they go into that fourth quarter with 0 turnovers, this could be a one-score game, I think. But they have to be smart with the football. And listen, it's clearly the best team they played. They really haven't played anybody up to this point. It will be interesting, to say the least, how this game will play out, but I'm going to have to lean towards Notre Dame.
Then we've got number 5 Indiana versus number 2 Ohio State. Look, uh, I'm gonna be frank with you. I like this matchup for Indiana. I know they're going on the road, but my big thing about Ohio State is in the big games, look, they just haven't been able to get the separation. They lost to Oregon and they barely beat Penn State. I think Indiana falls into the Oregon category. They're not going to be afraid to take chances. They haven't been all year. They're going to be willing to execute and take risks to win this game. And I think that's what it takes to beat Ohio State. Ohio State put a lot of potential on this team, a lot of talent on this team, and it has not shown up to make them the better team in these close games. That's really what you think about in these close games when you see two really talented teams, ranked really highly facing off against each other. Who's got the more talent? And that really hasn't helped Ohio State a ton. We had, the near fumble from Quinshaw Judkins in the Penn State game that almost set them up in pretty field position at the end. You talk about just the way that this defense that they built just got beat by Oregon's offense. So I like Indiana in this game. I'm going to take them outright. I like them. Like Kirk Signetti said, look me up. I win. And he's done that so far at Indiana. He's already earned himself a contract extension, which blew my mind when I saw that not too long ago. I like Indiana here. That's just really all I can say. I'm just I hate the way the rankings are that Ohio State's 2 and Indiana's 5 to begin with. I think no matter what, they should be ranked higher. I think they're going to come out and make that statement in this game.
I mean, they could do like the idiotic take from Joey Galloway and just not play their quarterback in this game to risk so that they're safe in the playoff and they don't risk him getting injured and having what happened to Florida State last year. Yes, that was actually said on national television, folks. Yeah. Gives me hope and anybody else hope that idiots like that can make it, other people can make it too. But no, listen, in this game, I think that Indiana, like you said, they have to play aggressive. They can't play scared against them. To me, the thing I wonder, Ohio State, they already had the one injury on the O line. Now they're starting centers out for the year, as far as I know, at least out for this game. So that's two missing starters on that offensive line. And we have seen this Indiana defensive line be really solid this year. I think they can cause some issues with Ohio State. And I think this is one where normally I'd probably lean Ohio State. But I think Indiana has nothing to lose because they haven't played anyone up to this point. They know if they lose, they're probably out anyway based on strength of schedule. They got nothing to lose. I'm going to roll with the team that's got nothing to lose. I'm going to take Indiana to win this game.
Yep, my thinking exactly. In our final game pick, we got BYU going in and facing Arizona State. Who you got in this game?
Oh, man. I just love the stakes of this game because I know good and dang well there was no one who thought this game would have had stakes like this at the start of the season. I'll just be dead honest with you. I'm rolling with the momentum, and that is Arizona State. Arizona State at home, 2:30 kick against a BYU team who, number one, really hasn't played the toughest schedule in the world up to this point, and also just coming off a loss, their first loss of the year. I think Arizona State takes advantage of that. I think they win this game easily.
Yeah, look, we've just been taking words right out of each other's mouths on this one. Look, it's exactly what I was going to say. I'm erring on the side of momentum here. You got a team that's the last couple weeks have not been their very best, and that's culminated now in their first loss of the season. Kind of a big letdown spot where they're really hoping to have this, fun undefeated season. Morale is took a big hit last week. And then we have a team that's been building themselves up over the last couple of weeks. Got a huge ranked win, got themselves back in the top 25, and angled themselves in a spot to get back in the conference championship. I think they see the path before them. Their destiny is completely in their own hands, which I love for Arizona State. That always breeds these fun situations when you can create your own destiny. They've got it right here. I think they go out, they take it by the neck, and they get the job done.
Absolutely.
Let's get into our final segment then. That's our bet of the week. What yarn you spinning for us in bet of the week this week?
So a weird thing, I've got two for you. I've got two for you this week. And by the way, just to say it, because I said it earlier this year, next week, the final week of the regular season, we're gonna get our picks. We're gonna get our bets of the week picks in to see who's dominating that. And then maybe before conference championship, I'll get our game picks in. But that's a maybe on that. But my two bets of the week, number one, I felt high on it. I talked about it early in the show. Then you brought it up. I mentioned it. Give me Minnesota plus 11 and a half against Penn State. I think this will be a one score game, or even if it's just, I think Minnesota stays within 10 points in this game. I don't think this gets past 10 points, let alone 11 and a half. But my main, if I only had to pick one, Arizona State -3. I think they are going to dominate against BYU at home in that environment. I think they will roll in this game. Those are my two bets of the week. I think they're easy, simple. You will win money with them.
All righty. Well, I got a fun one for us here. I love a good big spread. And I love a good big spread against Miami. So I'm going to go Wake Forest plus 25 against Miami. A week off. I think Miami's going to win this game. I don't think Wake Forest is that good enough to beat them. But week off for Miami, they already don't have the best track record of winning these kind of games as big as they're supposed to. I like Wake Forest to cover. The home of Sam Hartman, my king, Wake Forest is going to cover this one.
Okay, fine. Whatever, fine. Whatever.
Hey, I said I think Miami's going to win. I, I just,
I know. I'm just messing with you. I'm messing with you. Nonetheless, I will say there may not be a lot of big ranked matchups this week. There's a lot of trap game potential this week, Austin, and that's always dangerous.
absolutely. Last time we got to talking about trap games, we were right. Just saying, we've watched enough college football between the two of us to know when something is awry and something fishy is in the air. So get ready for a fun week of college football. Happy early Thanksgiving. I
Yep.
think maybe we'll probably have another episode talking about this next week and stuff and what the week of Thanksgiving looks like. But just in case that doesn't get out before Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there. Make sure to listen to our NFL episode. This time I'm being for real. We will for real have one. I'm not lying like I did last week. Unforeseen circumstances really took us out last week. But we'll be back at it. I'm Austin Hill. That's Austin Waiter. And we want to thank you for listening.